Hey everybody, good morning. Day 55 here. Day 55 here of Spiritual Healthcare. Welcome to all of you. We've got some really deep things to talk about today, and I am glad to be digging into this and digging into some of the topics this morning, which is going to be, we've talked about things like grief and things like that in the past, but today we're going to look at things in a brand new way. We're going to turn things around and look at things completely differently when it comes to this subject matter, and what we can do, what we can own, and how we can move through it in a really empowering way. So welcome to everybody. Good morning. We're going to talk today about not only grief and what it is to move forward with it, but what the paranormal tells us about it, as well as how to find your voice in it when we've kind of lost that. So good morning Patricia and Will, nice to see you guys. Nice to see everybody logging in this morning. This is going to be a really great morning. I'm excited. It is a really windy day here. I don't know what it is doing where you guys are. It is a very windy day. Hence the, headband today. It's very windy, and it's a little on the chilly side. The weekend is supposed to be better, but yeah, so today is going to be all about that. Good morning, Jay. Good morning, Marge. We're going to chat. As I say, today I'm going to reintroduce you guys, because there's so many new people. I'm going to reintroduce you guys to a process called the focus wheel, because it really applies to this and moving us through all of the different things that we're going to be talking about today. Good morning, Lori. Good morning, everybody. Eric, nice to see you. Nice to see everybody coming in this morning. It's so great. So it is. It's going to be about finding your voice, finding what it is to move through this in an empowering way. The last time we did this subject, we talked about finding the joy in grief, and how to get from the one part of the emotional scale to the other part of the emotional scale, and how to surrender in that. And there's a video actually on that specifically, not only in the spiritual healthcare section of our archives, so the YouTube archives and entityseeker.ca, but there's another video on that as well, on YouTube and entityseeker.ca, that has to do specifically with finding the joy in grief and that space between our emotions and our stillness. So check that out, you guys, later if you want. This morning we're going to look at this, as I say, in a kind of a different way. We're going to put a different spin on it, to help get you guys moving, because there's so many people over the last number of weeks, throughout all of this, who have either people who are sick in the hospital or are losing people to COVID. And I think it's important that we kind of identify some of the things, not only that we're going to be going through, but also, as I say, what the paranormal, where that fits into all of this, spirits and all of that kind of thing, but also how we get our voice back when it comes to something like this happening, because so much of the time that we lose our voice in it. So we're going to blend this all together. It's going to make sense as we go along. I'm wearing my Marilyn Manson shirt, because talk about somebody who found their voice early. I had the pleasure of meeting him a number of years ago, and what a powerful human being. It just amazing, filled the space in his stillness and silence. It was an amazing meeting. Extremely kind person. So that being said, let's get this rolling. Good morning, Sally and Darren and Kaz and Ed. It's nice to see everybody. Welcome. Anybody that I have not said hello to this morning, good morning. It is, as I say, this is going to be a good half hour. It's a good half hour, and I've got such a cool to do for you guys today as well. Like, it's really awesome. So, some of you were asking yesterday. I was talking about the Edgar Allan Poe house tour. I did post it. I know some people were having trouble finding it. It is on the Entity Seeker Facebook page, so just keep scrolling until you find it. It's there. It's so neat. It's just really neat to see such a historical home. It's really cool. I also was told yesterday, and this was so exciting to me, and this will be exciting for you guys too. There is a group in the States And what I thought was so cool was that their entire area, their entire city, neighborhood, was experiencing all of this paranormal activity, and they didn't know what to do about it. And the coolest thing, and I thought this was the neatest email, that now the entire neighborhood are now spiritual health care participants and students, and they've got the entire neighborhood watching. So they've got everything from their ministers and their churches and their social groups and all sorts of things are now on the YouTube page, going back and catching up on spiritual healthcare. So we've now got another neighborhood of people who have joined us, and I think that is the coolest thing. So for everybody that is part of Dan's neighborhood, hello to everyone. It is so good to see you guys, and thank you for participating and finding value in all of this. I hope today brings you some more information that is valuable to you. It's really exciting. So let's get into this, you guys. Let's crack into this. So the idea, we talked the last time about the idea of grief, and I want to actually start with the reading today. And normally we usually save this until later, but I wanted to start with this because I think it's really relevant to where we're going with this conversation. So I want to pull out my book, actually, Teaching the Living, because I wrote a section on this, and I wanted to start off by reading that to you guys. So check this out. It brings to light a serious question. What does dead really mean? After nearly 2 decades of paranormal research, I have interacted with a lot of people, and I have found the living fit the definition of dead far better than those who have made their transition to non-physical. I've met people who have sabotaged themselves into a miserable life on purpose. I've watched individuals walk through their entire lives unconscious to their own pain, and never working on rebuilding who they are or their relationships. I've worked with people who have lost everything and gave up moving forward. Dead. What I've seen in these entities is the absolute opposite of everything that I have just described. Not only have they displayed acute awareness of what is going on around them, but a clarity and a joy that our clients aspire for. So I want to start with that today because there are so many people that are going through so much right now. And the quarantine is beginning to bring this out in people also, is that there is an emotional disconnection between that engagement with our world and being able to move forward, whether it be dealing with something like grief, whether it be dealing with, depression or anything like that. There's a disconnection I find that seems to be happening where people are having trouble getting their feet under them. Irene de la Garza, she's asking, where do I get the book? Will is dead right. It's Amazon is the best place for it. You can find it on entityseeker.ca as well. So we have to start looking at this in a new way, and we have to start seeing grief in the same way that we're seeing things like COVID-19, where this is an opportunity that once we are able to acknowledge where we are, acknowledge and heal what's going on, it is an opportunity, number one, to start being self-full rather than selfless. Because oftentimes people will think that if you're being selfish, then you're ignoring everybody else, and we should put everybody else first. That should be the way things are. And a lot of people of the older generations are taught that from a very early age. You put other people's first. You need to be last on the list. And if you're not, you're selfish. And they've got lots of different names for that. Lots of different names, probably many that shouldn't be mentioned on here. And we have to begin to understand the nature of the feedback that's surrounding us about this. And things like paranormal occurrences, things like hauntings and stuff like that really does become more feedback. It's more feedback. If we've got people in our world who are being critical, for example, there's a big difference between getting feedback, especially during a time period of grief and things like that, and getting criticism. So I want to make a distinct difference between those two terms so that you guys can gauge what it is you're getting. Because oftentimes, especially when we're in emotional turmoil, whether it be grief or upset, or we're angry about something, or we've put something out there into the world, People screw the two up. And when we get feedback, whether it be from our environment, like, a haunting or something like that, it's an indicator of where we are. Good feedback is about motivation. It's about being able to take it, step on it, and move forward with it. It's meant to propel us. Where with criticism is meant to control and manipulate. So there's a difference. And when we're in these types of situations and we're getting the same thing again and again, we have to start looking at two different things. Number one, we have to start looking, what is it about us that is attracting this experience? That's number one. Number two, what is it about us that they might be seeing that is projecting this image? So this is what I really want to talk about today when it comes to things like, trauma or anything like that. We have to begin to take a hard look at how we are processing and dealing with what it is that we're dealing with. We really do. If somebody's coming to us and saying, look, I don't think you've been right. I don't think you look, something is off. Oftentimes what we do is we internalize that. We hear that as wrong. We hear that as them making us wrong, and that's not always the case. Sometimes, it might just be that one person, or it might be someone turning around and saying, look, I've noticed a change in you. I've noticed change that I don't know what this is. And if one person says it, you can kind of take it or leave it sometimes, depending on the person. If two people say it, you might want to start thinking about it. If three people start to come to you and say it, something might be really up. And that's not a time to shut that down. Whether or not, no matter the tone, it's something that we have to start to begin to think about. The other thing is that we have to be willing to do a new thing. We have to be willing to do a new thing. We have to start looking at what we are doing, decide whether or not if it's working, and you do that based on the results that you're getting. It's funny because our environments are such a great indicator of where we are, where they really are. So we're looking at something like, say a haunt. Let's use the example of a haunted home. If we've got a bunch of negative stuff that's going on around us, and we've got all of this paranormal stuff that's just, it's frightening and it's scary and all of these different things, then we have to start to look at what that environment is telling us about us. We just have to. When we start to look at something that maybe is a little bit more positive, maybe we've got, a spirit in the house that's fantastic to interact with, that, we wouldn't trade for the world. There's some great hauntings out there that will change your life and be amazing. And that's, again, it's another indicator. What's going on? What is going on? And in order to do something different, to pull ourselves out of that broken place, sometimes you're going to have to piss people off. You're going to have to piss people off. And that can be really difficult to get your head around, especially if you're one of these people who has not been self-full. If you have not been self-full, pissing people off is one of the last things on the planet that you probably want to do. But in order to change that dynamic and change that momentum, you are going to have to make people mad, because let me tell you, people will sit with you in your misery, and quite happily. They really will. There's a great line in a song by Fall Out Boy about that he's a stallion and prefers his heart when it's broken, because it's easier to tame that than it is to get somebody's momentum underneath of them and push them forward. We have to start also, when we're in the grieving process, or when we're moving through this experience of the quarantine, or when we're looking at ourselves, to begin to give all meaning to whatever we're looking at. We have to start being able to not brush this stuff under the rug. If we've got, as I say, a haunting or something like that that's going on in our house that's terrifying, that's escalating, that's something, we have to start to give meaning to that. And what I mean by that is to start looking at, what does this mean for me? Don't brush it under the rug. Don't just forget and pretend that it's not there. That's not going to help us. And even when we're doing this work, when we're sitting down and we're doing our journaling and we're doing, all of the work that we've talked about and worked on in spiritual healthcare, we have to then start to look at, if you're labeling yourself as bad or stupid or broken, or you've got a label that's going on that is not working for you, you have got to begin to give meaning to those things too. Start to give meaning to it. Start to pay attention. It's really important, especially, as I say, to self-labels. The other thing that we have to pay attention to when we're moving through things like grief or upset or, those, whatever that hard moment is, to know who we are. Know who you are. And I don't mean like, what your job has told you or what the people on the internet have told you or your SIN number or whatever the heck that is. That's not what I'm talking about. It's having a core understanding of who you are, so that when that is challenged, when you get, because let me tell you, people are weird when people pass away, when people are grieving, people get really weird. And anybody who has been through this has probably experienced it, where suddenly people are, they start to come at you like, they want you to get over it because you're making them uncomfortable. Maybe you're dealing with a situation that is, not something that they're used to. Some people just stop talking to you completely because it's like, I don't know how to deal with this, so I'm going to just opt out. They take the easy way out. It's not that it makes it right, but people get really funny. They get very critical, and they tend to want to manipulate or try to force you through a process that might not be your process. They give such credence to the a time. They say you should have a time limit to grieve, or a time limit to follow the steps of grief, and so on and so forth. And that's just not true. It's just not true. When we start to look at things like, our own patterns and how we move through things and what surrender looks like and all of these different things, then you begin to realize really quickly, and I've noticed this over years of dealing with clients, years of teaching social work and psychology programs, all sorts of stuff like this, where every single person, and I tell this to my social work students, every single person you meet is going to be at a different place, moving through life, moving through this process, and it might not look like how you want it to look. It might not. And we've got to start to understand that. So when we're dealing with individuals that are coming at us, that are being critical, questioning who we are, questioning that process and whatnot, if you can keep your center, if you know who you are in moving through this experience, then you're going to have a lot easier time doing the next thing, which is putting up a boundary. It's just putting up a boundary and saying, like, look, here's what I'm experiencing from you. And it's just not working. It's not working. This is my experience of you. And that's not a criticism of them. You're just relating to them what you are experiencing. Okay? And if they start to criticize that, which they probably will, because people like this usually do, then you can turn around and say, this is not a criticism of you. This is my experience of your energy and your behavior. And that's not something that you can attack, nor is it something you can attack if they're coming to you with that about you. If they're coming to you, and that's a really big thing. Shadow's asking, what do we do to those who are still struggling after 10 years? Depends on what the struggle is, I think. If you could elaborate on that a little bit, that would be fantastic. I think the people who say, for example, Marge is saying she had to do this with an alcoholic family member that was sucking you dry. Boundaries, and giving them the gift of not enabling that behavior. It's like, look, this doesn't work for me. You're going to teach these people how you're going to be treated. You just are. And if you allow it and you're silent about it, then guess what? It's not going to work. Shadow's saying, the struggle of dealing with the death of a loved one. And you know what? Here's the thing. Time heals nothing. Time heals nothing. And we like to think it does. We like to think, okay, if this is, we'll just give it time. Time will fix it. Time doesn't fix anything. It really doesn't. It's what you do in that time. It's what you do in that time. So the people that are, stuck, they're, say grieving, for example, use the word grieving for 10 years. I would argue that they're not grieving. Because if they were grieving and they processed it, then that would become a part of their stories. where you can begin to repeat that story without it being an emotional attachment. It is about what you do during that time. So I would argue if 10 years has gone by and that person is still in the same place, that's not grief, that's stuck. That's just stuck. And that's a whole nother problem. Sarah's asking, how do you do it before if you've never set boundaries? How do you set boundaries? This is a really big one. I think the first thing you need to do is come to the conclusion of knowing what you want to be acceptable. Define it, because a lot of people have not defined that. They really haven't. They will sit down and, they will think something is unacceptable and let the person run amok anyway. And then they can't figure out why it's happening and then why it's happening to them and why people are going all crazy in their life. So we have to first figure out what it is that we want. What is it that we want? And define what that feels like. What does it feel like to have that? Because when we get a vision, when we have a clear vision of what that is, the things that come in that don't match that, they feel really weird. Like it feels really off. It's like if you've got a bunch of people, for example, who are coming into your experience, who say you're working on a creative project or something like that, and they start, banging on the door and saying, I've got a great idea and I'm going to take it and go here and do this and so on and so forth. It immediately hits your radar because you think to yourself, no, that's not the vision I had. So you got to take a step back. The second part of that is to be able to exercise the no muscle. Just exercise the no muscle. And it can start with like really small things. It can start with small things like just, somebody asks you for coffee, you don't feel like going, and just be like, I can't do it today. I can't do it today. It doesn't work for me. That phrase is such a great one because it's not about, don't make it about the other person. It doesn't have to be, it's not about the other person. You're not rejecting the other person. What you're doing is you are filling up your heart in order so that you can turn around and give to people once it's full. This is doing other people a favor, because as soon as you start to engage other people and start giving them what you don't have, then, and I loved this phrase from Iyanla Vanzant because this is probably one of my favorite things that she has said. As soon as you start to do that, you make the other person a thief. And it's really, really true, because the other person doesn't know that you don't have that in them in yourself to give. They don't. They don't know that you're upset. They don't know that you're burdened. They don't know that they're being a problem because you've lost your voice. You don't tell them. You don't tell them. So think about it like that. Think about it as, in order to preserve and maintain that relationship, and the number one relationship that you've got is with you. That's it. That's the relationship you've got to start with. But knowing who you are, having that clear vision of what you want, no matter what it is, whether it be like a relationship or work or whatever, and then knowing what that is, and start to write it down. How do you want to feel? And if that stuff isn't matching up with what you want to feel, then you've got to say, look, this just doesn't work for me. The other part of it is being able to renegotiate. It doesn't have to be a drop dead deal breaker. It doesn't. And some people it does. There's no question. Some people you've just got to say, I'm out. But, oftentimes it's not a deal breaker. Sometimes it's just a matter of renegotiating what that boundary looks like. And when we've got broken relationships in our experience that we have contributed to, because we are either a contributor or a taker. We are. And if we've got a broken relationship somewhere, we have to be able to turn around and say, hey, look, let's renegotiate this. Let's relook at this so that we can build something that's healthier, that's better, that we can both be excited about. Boundaries don't have to be a negative conversation. It's funny when it comes to haunted places. I get a lot of clients that will have things, they'll have a, relatively joyful haunting going on in their house, but there's stuff that's going on maybe that is just irritating them, that's annoying, who knows? I've had some weird ones over the years. But it's funny because the people in those situations often will ask me, how do I tell them that? How do I speak that? What do I do when this entity is doing this thing over and over and over again and I can't control it? Well, hold on a minute. This is a bigger problem than somebody who just doesn't know how to deal with a haunting. this is losing your voice. And usually that lack of boundary is reflected in multiple different areas in their relationship. It just is. It just translates into a bigger picture, you know. And so when they are struggling with things like, you know, just telling a spirit to just stop doing the thing, just stop, just don't do this. This doesn't work for me. Don't do this anymore. You know, when they're having trouble struggling with that conversation, usually it is a reflection of the boundaries in their experience, over and over and over again. It's a really big thing. Marge is saying that she was told she was an empath by her therapist, and very careful about how she's giving herself. Absolutely. You know, you got to be conscious. Make sure your cup is full, because then when it is, the you that you are bringing to the table is so much more connected. You're in your connection, and then you don't get resentful. That's the other thing. People will sit and stew in their resentment. Let me tell you, it is crazy. It is crazy. You know, and they will sit and they will get mad at you, and you don't even know they're pissed off. And that drives me nuts. It's one of the things that drives me absolutely nuts. Is people that sit back and they're pissed off at you, you know, and they're sitting there like this, and, you know, they're all mad and talking to people behind your back and whatever, and you never hear a damn word. You never a damn word about it. It is, to me, it's an immature and ridiculous thing to do, especially as we're, you know, as adults. It's like, you know, I remember when we little kids, you know, you run to your friends in grade 1 and 2 and just go, you know, I can't believe so-and-so did blah, 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 whatever, you know, and then everybody's sitting in the corner like this, right? So it's just, you know, it's just crazy. It's crazy-ment. Don't make other people's crazy your problem. Stop it. Don't do that. That's not your problem. They got their stuff to clean up. So here's the next part of this that I want you guys to really get. People and entities will hold us to our limitations. This is a big one. So if we've got a belief that's going on within ourselves, if we've got something that's going on within us, if we are telling ourselves that we are stupid, if we are telling ourselves we aren't worth anything, if we are telling ourselves that we're, I don't know, slow or can't learn or whatever that is for you, if this is your message, hauntings will reflect it. People around you will reflect it, and they will reflect the limitation that you've set for yourself. If you set the bar that you can't do X, Y, Z, they will gladly accommodate it. And, you know, and then oftentimes that's another thing that begins to start breeding resentment, is that now we look around and we think, well, why aren't we getting that opportunity that we wanted? Why aren't we getting the promotion that we wanted? Or, you know, why isn't, the spiritual stuff that we've wanted to have happen, the encounter that we wanted with a loved one, why isn't that happening? What are you doing? What are you doing to hold yourself back from that? What is the story you're telling? Are you telling yourself that you can't have it? Are you telling yourself that you were told that as a kid, or that, you know, the paranormal is evil, so therefore, you know, you don't want anything to do with it, yet you're waiting for the encounter from a loved one? Figure out, entities will hold you to your limitations, and people will do the same thing. If you think you're broken, they will make sure you know you're broken. They're like, yeah, this one's broken. Okay, no problem. We'll move on. We're going to go do something else. So we got to think about that. You know, our limitations are going to set the bar for where we move forward in our experience. So the last biggie is to start to trust ourselves. This is a big one, because most people have a terrible time with this, like ridiculously terrible time with this. We did a class a little while ago on the idea of trust. We did a class a little bit ago about the 3 forms of trust, which is, you know, trust in non-physical, trust in ourselves, and trust in others. And, you know, all of those things, when we've got those things in alignment with who we are, and our goals and our vision moving forward, all of this stuff begins to fall into line. It really does. Once we start to master that and know who we are and know ourselves, the rest of this really does start to fall into line, because what we end up thinking or moving through the world with is this really, really clear vision, and having those people that don't quite fit right into that puzzle they look really off. Things just start looking really, really weird. And it's something that's we really got to pay attention with. And Darren's saying how I love how you talk about what I am doing versus blaming something on the other person. Yeah, exactly. This isn't about blame, you guys. It's not about blame. This is about fault, or not about fault, but about ownership, right? So if fault and blame are kind of intermixed with each other. And this is about our ownership, because it's so easy to turn around and blame and put the fault on someone else. So we turn around often and go, "You did this to me. You must have done." Hold on a minute. No. That's not what this is. What ownership are you taking about the experience you're having? And then turn around and explain that. Explain that, because there's very little to argue about at that point. And you're always trying to pair with that person to find a solution. And some people they don't want a solution. And once they don't want a solution, then well, that's your answer, isn't it? It's your answer. Yeah. It's so funny. Okay, I want to reintroduce you guys to a concept that we started early on in spiritual healthcare, but I think there's so many people that are new, I'm going to bring this up again. And it's a process called the focus wheel. So this is a great way, basically, throughout your day, you guys can do this. And because I actually I have a journal where I do these all the time. And I'm going to introduce this to you guys. I just want to answer Sarah's question quickly. How do you know if you have a gift, and can you learn to understand it better? Yeah, absolutely. There's some amazing sites out there. The one that I work with often that I just adore is the Windbridge Institute. I highly recommend them. They are amazing. And the Windbridge Institute, so it's windbridge.org, I believe. And if you look them up, they're amazing. They work with mediums and all sorts of things that have people with the same message, same vibes, same message, same pure positive energy, and they're just the leading edge of this stuff. But knowing whether you have a gift, see it as a means of connection. It's not necessarily something that it's a gift per se. It's something everybody can do. It's just more people are tuned in than other people. That's all it is. It's and everybody has the ability to fine tune it. The best way to fine tune it is to get still. Find a way where you can find your joy. Find the stillness, the ability to meditate, paint, draw. The arts are such a fantastic way to develop it, and the understanding of it really does become partly your own journey. Everybody receives this stuff different. There's not really a telltale about these are the specific things that you're going to experience. But a place like the Windbridge Institute, I highly recommend, because they can help with that. Another one is the Forever Family Foundation. They typically deal with grief and things like that, but they also have an amazing group of people who talk and counsel people that have psi abilities and things like that. So the Forever Family Foundation would be also a great resource to go to. So the focus wheel, you guys, looks like this. This is my really bad attempt at a focus wheel because I drew it really quickly. But so basically what this is you're going to draw your wheel on your page. And in the middle of your focus wheel, you're going to put down what it is that you want. Okay, so whatever it is you want to get to, not where you are, but where you want to get to, is going to come right in the middle. And you're going to put it down as if you already have it. Okay, how would it feel to be in that place? And usually it's a big leap between where you currently are sitting. Usually it's going to feel like there's a gap, which is what the other part of the wheel is for. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back to feeling about where you are. Say it's frustration, for instance. And you're going to write basically how you are, how you're feeling. But in the next little column, you're going to start writing a thought that feels a little bit closer to what it is that you want to get to. Just a little bit closer. It doesn't have to be a big jump. It shouldn't be a big jump, actually, because big jumps usually don't stick. So you're going to, in the next one, write something that feels a little bit closer. In the one after that, you're going to write something that feels a little bit closer still than the one that you just wrote. And by the time you get all the way around the wheel, you're going to be so much closer, if not there, to the place where you want to be, when the place that you're feeling more joy or feeling more passion or feeling whatever that is. But the whole idea is to begin to break up and release that negative emotion. You're beginning to reframe your thoughts. You're beginning to reframe the situation. And you're just slowly working yourself up the emotional scale with a clear vision in mind as to where you want to be. So I'm actually going to post ones that are like not terrible and me drawing them. I'm going to post some like actual charts for you guys on Entity Seeker, the Facebook page here, so that you guys can actually download the focus wheel charts, or you can just draw them out yourself, and they'll probably end up looking like mine because, yeah, you know, no judgy. So yeah, but I'm going to post those up on Entity Seeker so you guys can download them and play around and mess with those, because they work really well whether you're dealing with upset and grief, if you're way down there, or if you're just trying to clean something up, like just generally clean something up during the day. You know, that maybe you know, got a weird look from somebody, or, you know, who knows, everything, you know, weird stuff happens like that, you know, or, you know, if you're dealing with a haunting or something, you know, if something happens that you're not happy with, clean it up. Let's clean it up. And a focus wheel is a great way to do that. Yeah. So that being said, I've kept you guys long enough. Let's do our health affirmations. Everybody take a breath. It is natural for my body to be well. Even if I don't know what to do in order to get better, my body does. I have trillions of cells with individual consciousness, and they know how to achieve individual balance. When this condition began, I didn't know what I know now. I don't need to understand the cause of this illness. I only have to gently, eventually release this illness. It doesn't matter how it got started, because it's reversing its course right now. And there's no hurry about any of this. My body knows what to do. Well-being is natural to me. My inner being is intricately aware of my physical body. My cells are asking for what they need in order to thrive, and Source is answering those requests. I'm in very good hands. My only work is to relax and breathe, and I can do that easily. And everybody take a breath. Now, before you guys go, I have an awesome to-do for everybody. There is a great website talking about getting ourselves into a new headspace called Get Cultured Now. And it's getculturednow.com. And the great thing about this website, they offer tours of some of the coolest places in the world. They are live tours online. They are live tours. They're online. And they're all over the world. So you still get interaction with your tour guide. You can ask questions. You can talk to the other participants in the tour. You can do it is the coolest thing. It's called Get Cultured Now. And there's tours like the Sistine Chapel. It's amazing. Like historical locations all over. There's Greece, and like it's incredible. So it's like, yeah, we can't go anywhere right now, but all the tours, these are still online. So I'm going to post a link to that for you guys. And they're cheap. There's like it's a donation of like $5 and stuff like that. It's unbelievable. So I want you guys to be able to participate in this stuff. To be able, if you're dealing with loss, or you're dealing with the stress of what's going on with COVID right now, this is a great way to take a break. Give yourself a break, and go to the Sistine Chapel. Like, that's cool. It's cool. I am so looking forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow. And again, thank you to everybody that comes every day, as well as, again, the neighborhood that is now watching spiritual healthcare. It's just fantastic that this is going so well, and it's a blessing to be able to do this with you guys every day. So thank you again. And if you guys want the catch up on past classes, again, youtube.com/entityseeker or entityseeker.ca has all of the spiritual healthcare classes. So grab them if you have missed out on any or want to go back on something. That's where they all are. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Spiritual healthcare. Thanks, everybody. Bye.